Greetings, beautiful people. My name is Simon Javan Okelo. I am the CEO and the founder of Madaraka Festival. I am also the host of Madaraka Festival podcast here on YouTube. And I'm really excited to be here with a wonderful guest, one of the most hardworking entrepreneurs I know here in Seattle, my wonderful friend, Avery. How are you doing?
Hi, Simon.
I'm so happy that, I'm able to sit down with you. You're one of the busiest people I know. So being able to steal some of your time to have this conversation today means a lot to me. And I want you to just add a little bit to this introduction. I don't feel like I gave you justice. I want you to add a little bit of, icing to this flower that I'm handing you. Now I need to have real flowers.
I should have brought some.
No, I should have had flowers here for you. So.
Oh, okay. You're too kind. Well, I'm also an arts commissioner for the City of Seattle Office of Arts and Culture. Mm-hmm. And I've been in that role as a chair on the Cultural Investments Committee for about a year now, which is very cool. It's a great way to advocate for the arts in another way. Founder, director, head curator of Taswira, and all of the other hats.
Yeah, I love it. One of the questions I love asking my guests is for you particularly. Take us back, 5 years, 10 years. Reflect on some of the colors, some of the sounds, and some of the foods, the smells that you grew up with that influenced who you are today. It's not every day that you run into an incredible woman like you running a gallery in downtown Seattle. I remember when you started the effort that it took for you to even start and sustain your first space. Now you're at your second space.
It was using what I got.
Yeah.
Simon, you hosted the first event that I ever, when I said, okay, y'all, community, use the space. You were the first person to do something.
I can't even believe that. So...
And I just look back, wow, I need to host something else for you guys.
Yeah, wow. Okay.
We've evolved.
Yeah, you've done incredible. But take us back, because I know that all this courage didn't just come from, you didn't just show up. It started somewhere, and it was nourished by some food and influenced by some sounds,
Yeah.
So share all of that with us.
I think that, as of lately, I've been sort of diving deeper into and realizing inspirations before, I even realized that those were the seeds that were planted at the time. But it started with music. I've just always been into music. I started this band in school, but none of us played instruments, but I was the singer.
Yeah, that's so fun.
And it was just the band. But I got a bass guitar, my grandmother played piano and acted, and so I grew up being able to see her, create something out of her creative endeavor. But I guess this is a part of my story that I haven't really shared.
Yeah.
But I grew up in Chicago, spent my childhood there. It's just been my mom and I. And there's a shift that took place where we decided that it would be best to move in with my, grandmother here in Seattle and Snoqualmie. And it was because she had breast cancer, and I told her, Mom, what's going to happen to me if something happens to you? And we just didn't have a ton of family in Chicago. So my best friend, Amy, and her dad drove this truck from Chicago to Washington State. And I started going to school here in like second grade in Snoqualmie, which was great. And then something, well, no, that was in Falls City. And then something happened like when I moved to, well, it was really around the time when Obama was elected, and I was like so proud to see, because my father wasn't involved in my life, so I just felt like this yearning to connect with like Black culture, and because my mom's family is white, and I wasn't raised to like I wasn't taught any part of that, and so I just school was really difficult once I moved to like Olympia area, and that's when I sort of began to run into like bullying situations, like to the extent that, you know, I had to drop out middle of my freshman year, well, at the end of my freshman year, and I ended up graduating with my GED at the end of my sophomore year. And, but I was always good at school. Like I loved school. I loved studying. I just think that the environments really did not make it safe. And so I tried to go to schools in other places around, but it just like, it was really difficult being away from my mom and only seeing her on the weekends and staying with like a friend of hers. And it was a struggle to like finalize and get through school because of that. My mom, I think because of everything happening, she had gotten fired from her job, like being there for me in times. And, you know, I think the best thing that she knew how to do at the time was like when I would say, Mom, like, I do not want to go to school today, she would just like, let me stay home. But that's where I really began to like tune into like my own ways of self-reflection. And she is an artist. And so I just do other things. But yeah, there came a point when I was about 16, 17, that, you know, because she lost her job and had also experienced like trauma in her workspace too in that area, you know, we were facing a bit of housing instability. And so I was on my own at 17, and I was working at MAC Cosmetics, which was just like, I was in the place where I needed to be, because I loved makeup. I would watch, you know, I'd spend those days in school. This was like during drag queen makeup, like when beauty influencers really started to like become influencers. And but it all started with like the drag community and makeup, you know, videos. And so yeah, that allowed me to meet a lot of people in the Seattle community. I remember there was a time when I would drive from Olympia to Bellevue working at MAC, doing like free lance gigs, hours. And I'd get to Bellevue from Olympia at 9 a.m. like every morning. And they were so strict because if you were like 5 minutes late, you're fired.
Go. Yeah, you know? Wow.
But like have that reputation.
Wow.
But there's, and then that being on my own and figuring out life at such a young age, you know, really took me down paths that, you know, it taught me so much, but just getting in different industries that, you know, I wouldn't wish another woman to have to be in. And I think that that's one of the areas that really inspired me to work with like women. And that's when like Africa, like the possibility of actually just being able to remove myself from these environments that became possible. And but I mean, at this time, this was in 2019 when I went to Kenya for the first time, and first I went to Bali, Indonesia, and I found out that I have like a percentage of like Asian in me through 23andMe. Yikes, because they just like sold all of our genetic data.
Oh, when?
Well, I think the company is like, yeah, they
were bought.
They were something about like they were closing down the company and they were just like selling whatever assets that they had. And so there was this big alert around saying like to have them remove your genetic data from from their records. But I mean, I just taking that genetic test, it's funny how we get into that, but that was also like where I was really curious about finding like where my father's side was. And so he's Nigerian and Ghanaian. And then we found traces of like Asian in me, Southeast Asian, and then European. But I was like, oh, now I have like, now I know. And that knowing that information alone just like gave me a lot of like strength and like, being like having another place where I would feel like I belong. And so, it was like happening at school, but it was also happening at home in ways for me. And so I just like totally have no siblings. I just kind of have felt like a lone wolf. But I, embraced that and just was like, okay, I'm just gonna do things and travel and however I can. And so going back to that, Emirates, so round trip flights on the Emirates was like $600 to Kenya. But I had been searching online after going to Bali. That really opened my mind to like this global perspective of art. I mean, I just saw the way that everybody had like a business or a hustle that they were creating, and
everybody is an entrepreneur. Like in
everyone
Kenya,
is,
there are more entrepreneurs than employees. Because there are fewer corporations, the government cannot employ enough people, and that's the pattern in most African and also the developing world, Asia,
And like I'm already done with like the school system, here. So I'm like, oh,
you refused it from childhood.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's like, the public. Well, what I learned in school was prepping me to go into college and to get a job and just, not necessarily entrepreneurial focused.
I feel like America, the 1% teaches their kids entrepreneurship,
Yeah, those privately funded curricula.
Yeah, and then they have access to companies started by their families, and they go for internships from a very young age, and so they know how to run business empires from
business
a young
and
age.
family empires.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And for me, that's part of why I believe in what you're doing, who you are, and to see what you've done with Taswira, and first understanding the incredible story that you just shared with us, and what you've gone through, and still feeling like this is my dream. This is not just my dream, but my business, and I'm going to do it. I don't have all the money to do it. I remember you campaigning for your rent at your first place. And I was like, she's going to do it. And then you end up doing it, And so consistency, this fighting spirit. At first, I didn't understand where it came from, but now I know, Now I kind of know that now I fully know that you've actually dealt with enough rejections that you don't care what people think anymore. And now I understand why you're being patient with the perception that people have about you. You're like, it's not a priority now, but time will deal with it. I love how you approach things that way, It's very healing. It means you're someone who has healed, and now you're focusing on healing others. That's why you have a space like that, where you're like, it's hard to start a business in Seattle. It's very hard.
It's very hard.
Yeah. Do you know how many businesses close every day in Seattle? Hundreds.
A day?
Yeah, daily.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
No.
Daily. Yeah, and not only Seattle, globally. So if you've kept your business for over 5 years now, right?
Yeah, we're almost at 4, but yeah, the brick and mortar.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So I physically walked into your first space and I loved it. So walk us through that journey. That you went to Kenya, but why Taswira? Why did you start Taswira Gallery? And describe to people who are hearing about Taswira for the first time, and then take us to the beginning, to that feeling of opening that door.
Well, you're awesome, Simon. Getting on the plane and deciding, you know what, I am interested in, bringing myself to another location after Indonesia. And I wanted to explore this other half of me. And, but I was a little nervous, to go because of all of the perceptions that I think America creates, and just
the travel
people around me.
And
my mom is this is when it's in the beginning of, I'm gonna do wild stuff, and I need you to support me on this. So we were just easing into that. But she supported me and said, you know what, if you got to do it, you got to do it. And so. I had been searching online for an opportunity to go meet community there already. And so working, looking at NGOs, there was this platform that kind of listed, IVHQ, that listed a ton of global smaller initiatives and community-based organization projects. And I was looking in their Africa, women's empowerment, because everything I was doing at the time, I just wanted to connect with other women who are also seeking purpose and trying to find a way to, supply life. And so that moment was just, they were welcome home. And I was met with 25 aunties, people who would become, my best friends. And I didn't know, I wasn't going in there to knowing what I was going to do. I don't have the expertise to talk about business, but it was a total sponge moment because, we just sat down and got to know each other every day, and I brought a couple of these business books, and we went through them together. And the first activity that we did was, and I was the only volunteer, and I was the first volunteer. So we were just we don't know what's going on, but we just want to find the ways that we can connect.
And this is where in Kenya now? Mombasa?
In Mombasa.
Mombasa, yeah.
And but they would tell it it was, what is your name? What is your business? How did you get into this? How are you keeping it going? What are the challenges? What are the things that are going really well and that you love most about this?
So you're asking these women.
Yeah, and we're writing it on paper because there's translations, and stuff. But this group of women was specifically there were some families who were affected by HIV who were a part of this, but this center, this program was developed as a branch to a primary school that Principal Peter Ocheng runs, and as like a way for the families to support their families, and especially the women in these families in the area, to develop additional sources of income to then support school tuition, because he, noticed that families were struggling to meet those financial requirements, and which like wasn't a lot. It was like $50, I think, and so I was just totally fell in love, and it was in sewing, which, I mean, I've been sewing as well for, a while. Design, I grew up sketching design. That was fashion and design, and working at MAC and doing makeup stuff and fashion show stuff. Like that is, I was in that classroom learning how to sew too. And there were also like women who make chapati but want to open a cafe, and so there was like 25 different entrepreneurial journees that all of these women were taking. And so I did a lot of research. I would phone a friend and I'd be like, if you who are from Kenya, a mentor of mine at the time, and I'm like, okay, this is what she wants to do. How would you go about doing that here? Like, what kind of resources, like, or strategies would you put in to like help elevate that a little bit? And so that I just learned about all of these different like areas of business and about them, and then it's like I had to go. I'm like, no, like, we're
that's
just
what happens with volunteering and visiting Kenya or Africa in general. It's like 10 days, 1 month, Yeah. And I feel like as you are talking, there is no way you are going to leave those groups of women and come back to a regular job. I think they turned you into an entrepreneur.
There was a lot that I was processing after that. Yeah, there was a lot.
Yeah.
And like in areas of how nonprofits, operate, business, artistic forms like that. There was ceramics, there were beauty, there's just so many different things. And and I, in the community that I had, found myself, in and found here in Seattle, that was also very much in connection with like the things that they were doing. And so we were doing a lot of fashion shows at the time here in Seattle. I think much more. There was like for a moment, there was a very powerful like runway modeling. You have the beauty influencers doing their thing on YouTube. You have like the Kardashians forming and these like larger brand deals taking place with artists. There's just a lot of transition happening in that time. And so I saw what they were doing in beauty and in fashion, just like totally, there was a platform. And so Taswira, the name was vision in Swahili, because those were like all of those different areas that we talked about. And the goal was, it was almost like a wellness journaling practice, because just envisioning, getting closer to our authentic voices and selves, and how we can align that with ways that, can generate income. And I just didn't align with living any other way, because of my school experience.
Yeah, and also like seeing all these women in Kenya able to sustain their families. Some of them have like 7 family members that they sustain with the chapati business. And you wonder, how are they doing it? And so then if you leave that environment and come back to Seattle, you feel like nothing can stop you, even if you choose to go the Taswira way,
Right.
But
right. There's also like a spiritual element to that, and just the lifestyle, like people are happy. I think there was a statistic that said like that Kenya is one of the happiest like places in the world, and like just sitting out on the porch in the morning and saying hello, and
sipping tea,
sipping tea. Like no one will let you start your day. If you haven't had tea, you're having tea with us. But just appreciating, those moments. And then you come back here and it's like, you gotta have this and these bills and like this. It's just the pressure here. But I mean, I had privilege to be able to, that's where I really saw like, okay, well, maybe my voice here for them could be, because I'm aware of like the privilege as an American citizen that we have of like accessing funding here for things. And so, that was a very, didn't work out the way that I thought that it might. But there is, you could go to a food bank here. There were, during the pandemic, like, if I didn't get rental assistance, I would have been in a much, tougher position. And, there's just these elements that are like non-existent really over there.
100%, yeah.
So I was like, okay.
100%.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Well,
I want to take us somewhere else. But
so like Taswira. So Taswira was formed because I felt like, okay, what if we made an online platform? And so then it was like in my natural element, I was shooting, like scheduling photo shoots. We were working with my model community, with the beauty community. We were dressing, these individuals in these fabrics and taking these photos. And it was really powerful. It was very powerful. And I also think that just the timing that it was, and like right around when the first Africa Fashion Week, it was like right after that, I was able to participate and behind the scenes and support that because our packages didn't arrive in time. And then I ended up having a later opportunity to showcase those pieces in a fashion show. And I've actually filmed a documentary around that that's on YouTube. And I remember, like, I haven't watched it in a while, but in that I rented this studio and we did like a fitting behind the scenes and just speaking to all of the different roles in like the fashion industry and then telling the story of the Women's Center. But I said in that video, I'm like, I have no idea how this is going to like unfold, but we're just going to do it. And then, so that video was filmed in the same building that this new gallery is in now. Wow. So I've come like full circle. Like, who would have thought that, on that corner, Taswira would be in just a few years. I want us to do a few episodes in that space in the coming weeks. And also, we will have you back on the show during that time. So hopefully it's in a month or so. Because I really want us to take a deep dive into Taswira, so it would be great to do it right there. For now, I want you to look at this camera. And we have Madaraka, August 30th. Okay.
I want you to invite everyone who is watching our conversation today to attend Madaraka Festival on August 30th at Pier 62. Then we'll continue our conversation. So look there.
Okay. Wait, can you say that again?
Madaraka Festival. Saturday, August 30th.
Saturday, August 30th.
At Pier 62.
At Pier 62.
Yeah.
Okay.
Perfect.
All right. Okay, everyone. Madaraka Fest is taking place on October 30th.
August 30th.
I need to like have to like write it down. Eventually, so I totally feel like I didn't get a chance to like talk to anything about like what we're doing now in the gallery and how it's evolved into like an art gallery.
I agree.
If there's anything, it would be like kind of, I can sum up that portion. I know like it's a big story.
You will, but and also we'll get a chance to actually do it in the gallery. So I think it's okay for us to, especially for those who are watching this, that could be part 2, for them to now listen to that part during that next conversation, which I really want to push for us to do soon. But today you will also summarize it. You'll get a chance to summarize it. So let's go to Madaraka.
Okay.
We'll talk briefly about your experience with Madaraka, and then you'll summarize where things are, because at the beginning of our relationship was also the beginning of Taswira, so you could tie them, right?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
August 30th.
Pier 62.
Pier 62.
Yeah.
Okay, everybody, you must show up to Madaraka Festival August 30th at Pier 62. Perfect.
Now, let's just summarize the Taswira story. I was at the first location. I haven't been to the second location, but just summarize it for us, starting with Madaraka 2022, where we first collaborated on a project.
Right. So, once things started opening back up, like Madaraka these festivals were really created opportunities for entrepreneurs and, people finding other ways to like generate income for after the pandemic. Like Madaraka Festival created a platform for Taswira, with all of these other vending opportunities, but to really like have community centered around like the African diaspora was so special. And I think finding community here in Seattle can be, tough. And so Madaraka Festival has been bringing people together, bringing the African continent to Seattle for years, and which is so important, and it needed to happen, but it took an individual like yourself. So meeting you was very inspirational for me as well. And to see someone like excelling. And so transitioning Taswira and finding space and having our first grant that I applied to was to acquire and fill this vacant space that was like right in Pioneer Square. And I had a dream, about my mother handing me a key to a space. And I think that's what got my wheels turning that direction to, and I couldn't unthink like what would impact look like if we had space, like having a store, being able to build an experience that makes people feel as inspired as, I did the first time that I found community in Kenya. And so now as we have, those first 2 years were so, rough. It was trying everything, failing as fast as I could, spending the most amount of unnecessary money, and like trying to like putting myself in spaces where I absolutely needed to get creative on how I was going to sustain this space. I'm in it for the long run. This was a long-term goal and not a short-term pop-up. And I wanted to stay there. And I think that it's what community needed as well, after coming out of the George Floyd time. And I think Africa was finally seeing, a light. And in the art market, we saw artists like Amawako, Boafo, Kende White. Well, Kende's, from the US. But we saw like an era of Black portraiture and saw ourselves in these paintings that we had never seen ourselves in before. And it was just it has been this incredible shift. Paying tribute, just seeing all of these African fashion brands, totally like blossoming too in a global scale. And so I think, excuse me, community needed that, and being able to place walls on the space, open up the floor. Now that I in host events, that's as a gallery participating in the art walks, aligning with local artists as well. I wasn't getting any funding support because it was just in Africa. And so it's like I had to go through these tough lessons and so eventually, as I began to explore artwork and working with local artists and putting art on the walls and trying to figure out why nothing was selling and like how those types of interactions in that industry even take place. I can say now, like safe to say, no gallery was operating the way that it used to before. So just the whole like environment in itself was going through a shift of how to reach their audiences. Like there were a lot of virtual art fairs, and it was rough. Therefore we saw a lot of opportunities within arts organizations here, like really pushing support to artists. And so I think as an art space, being able to finally, after 2 years, like access that kind of support, what really was that shift that took place was the year of 2023. Or was it 2024? It was 2024 when I was introduced to a Nigerian artist named Olumide Oreshegun from Nigeria, and he had flown in with like 16-rolled canvases. He had just, done the auction houses and was in major collections in Africa, Europe, did residencies in Australia, but he hadn't showcased in the US. And so a friend of his was like, come on down. And you can stay with me. And when you think about like African art galleries, it's, there's only a few of them in Seattle. And so he had done a round of introductions through community and eventually landed at Taswira. And we just totally hit it off. And his work is masterful. I mean, I can't even believe what I'm looking at because it's so realistic looking. These portraits of, people, and his water series, the water just dripping down. Yeah. It's like so real.
Yeah.
And I think Seattle hasn't really like had a gallery experience like that. We had other gallerists here who have, transitioned in their landscapes and outside of Seattle because it's rough here. For like Black art, I mean, all of really the African centered, galleries started all at the same time. Art Noir, Wanawaris, been doing their thing, fighting since, their ancestors on their housing, and, congratulations to them for finally like being able to purchase their home. And the Wow Gallery.
Wow,
Onyx. Tyreka Waters Onyx.
Yeah, Onyx is just next door to Wow, right?
Yeah, yep. Yeah, oh yeah, love those guys.
Yeah.
And Marian Ibrahim was someone who I found out about as well, who started in Pioneer Square and went to, actually was the one who grew and really blew up with Amuako. I'm representing him. But long story short, just transitioning and where I'm at today, like navigating this fine art space and being able to showcase artists' works, African, and artists' works in a really prominent way and in like a beautiful space, and was the best way for me to be able to find alignment in storytelling and kind of check all those boxes that has always been in the vision. And so totally, still navigating and learning every day. I didn't go to art school, but I've been blessed to be around mentors, and really these last few years have just been like in books. Just really, really, I don't even get the chance to go out much, because I've just been so focused on finding a way to form a team and be able to financially support that and figure out where the collectors are, and learning.
It's a lifetime mission.
Yeah, and I found out that nobody knows. So
nobody cares.
Everyone's figuring it out.
Nobody cares. A lot of the time when you're putting in the work, in your mind, you think that someone is going to care, but people don't care about the grind. People care about the results. People want to show up and support the artists that you have on the first day of the showcase at your gallery and the last day,
Mm-hmm.
But the work that goes in before, the work that is not seen.
During. It's a lot.
And I think you just have to find strength to keep you going and applaud yourself, Take yourself out, take yourself for dinner, travel by yourself, and encourage yourself to keep going, especially because, you're committed to doing this long term, So I truly, truly am proud of you. I commend you for your tenacity and, what you've been able to accomplish. Not even 5 years, So I really hope that you continue on, Hopefully one day we'll be able to look back and see that you've now purchased a building where Taswira, gallery is, and then you have other things that surround your vision, Yeah. So I wanted to look back at this camera and share with everyone who is joining us today how they can support you,
Yeah, well, follow us on Instagram, taswira.gallery. My Instagram's Avery Barnes, and we have a lot of different events that we're hosting. We have a phenomenal portfolio of artists, and so I think the best way for people to support us is to buy art. And we our goal is to make art accessible to people,
Yeah.
And
how can they buy art? On your website? Or
on our website,
at the gallery?
On our website, there's contact information, and we send catalogs out. But also just come to the gallery too. We're at 128 First Avenue in Seattle.
Excellent. One last thing. Just look at the same camera and ask everyone who is watching to subscribe to Madaraka Festival on YouTube.
Okay.
Yeah.
Should I be like, hey everyone, my name's Avery?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
You know this thing.
Okay. Okay. Hey guys, my name is Avery. Hey everyone, my name's Avery Barnes, founder of Taswira. Like and subscribe and comment and share this video, the Madaraka podcast.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone for joining us for today's conversation. My guest was Avery, and she's the founder of Taswira, which is an incredible gallery that you have to visit in Seattle. Avery has shared with you how you can support. Please make sure you do. And I also want to encourage you to make sure you leave your comment down below and give this video a thumbs up. That's one of the quickest ways you can support the work that we're doing, not only here, but with Madaraka Festival in general. Peace.